to episode 4 of the All Yellow Jackets podcast. I am your host, Jackson Caudell, publisher of allyellowjackets.com. And today we're going to be reviewing South Carolina State. Yes, it was a good win, easy win, and then there are bigger things ahead. We're going to just take a brief look ahead to Ole Miss this week and see how we match up this year, better than last year, of course. Before we do that, though, if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. More content's going to be coming your way. If you're listening on podcast form, be sure to leave a rating. It can be a low rating if you want to. If I need to step it up, let me know. But leave a rating, and I appreciate you listening. I appreciate anybody that reads the content, checks the website out. It means a lot to me. I love doing this for everybody and love covering this team. So everything is appreciated and doesn't go unnoticed. There was a game Saturday, and it was hard to judge it because obviously you're facing a very overmatched opponent. But offensively, there are a lot of good things that Georgia Tech can take away from this game. Defensively, there are some good things and there are some still concerning things. And all those things are going to have to be addressed before they go to Oxford this week. Like even the good things, like now you're facing the toughest opponent you've played all year. You got to do those good things even better now, like to even have a chance at winning this game. But so yeah, it was a crazy game Saturday. Obviously, the rain delay. I got there about 10:30. No weather in sight, nothing. And then about 1 o'clock, everything started rolling around. We got a lightning delay, was about to 1:22. Then another lightning delay went to about 1:42. And then they come out, and I'm kidding you not, like they shake hands, do the coin toss, do all that. We're getting ready to kick off, and then another delay. So that was something unique, and hopefully the team doesn't have to fight through that again. But it was a very unique situation. They finally got going, I think, about 3:23. And the game lasted into the evening. And offensively, you could not ask for a better game out of this team. And again, I'll say this a million times today. I know it's South Carolina State. They are a FCS team and not a very good one. But this is the kind of result that you want to see, especially out of your offense. Like in the Louisville game, you got a glimpse of how good the offense could be in the second quarter. But the first, third, and fourth were not that great. At the end of the game, you got a touchdown. But throughout most of the second half and the first quarter, it wasn't anything. This was a consistent effort from the opening drive to the last one. And there were some hiccups in between. Trey Cooley cannot fumble on the goal line ever again. Like you can survive that in this game, but if he does that Saturday or against Wake Forest or against Miami or against whoever, it's going to really come back to bite you. That's, I think, the only negative thing I can say about Trey Cooley's play all year is he did fumble in the Louisville game near the goal line. That was called a touchdown, but still, he's got to be able to hold on to the ball. But 28 first downs, 268 yards rushing, 8.1 yards per rush, 8.6 yards per play. Like that is elite level stuff. And again, opponent adjusted, of course, but those are the kind of numbers you see elite offenses in the country put up. Those are the kind of numbers that USC puts up. Those are the kind of numbers that Washington puts up. Very, very good offenses. And again, like everything, you're going to start with the quarterback, but I actually think somebody else should be highlighted first today, and that is Jamal Haynes. I'm starting to wonder if he has taken over the running back role, period, now. I think him and Trey Cooley were the top two backs on Saturday. Dante Smith did get in. Evan Dickens got in at the end of the game. But Jamal Haynes, 9 carries, 114 yards, a touchdown, a 67-yard run at the end of the first half. Like it looked like they were just trying to run the clock out, get to halftime. You just had South Carolina State just had a long drive to go and score. It was the most disappointing drive of the game, especially on the defensive end. And then Haynes breaks a 67-yarder, gets him down there, and then the next play, Haynes King hits Brett Seether for a touchdown. I think what he is bringing to this offense, you didn't see it last year. I mean, Hassan Hall had his moments, but consistently he didn't have that big explosive game outside of maybe Pitt. Jamal Haynes has had 2 really good games. He didn't continue his first half in the second half against Louisville. He didn't continue his performance, but this past week was a complete performance. I mean, Trey Cooley, 10 carries, 93 yards, a touchdown as well. But Jamal Haynes just brings an explosive element to this offense that it didn't have last year. It didn't. And there are a lot more explosive players on this offense, but Haynes catches my eye every single time he goes out on the field. He is extremely quick. when they are running these zone stretches, he hits that hole and he can cut back immediately. Like his ability to cut back, get past the line of scrimmage, and make people miss is something this team really needed. And he has been absolutely fantastic so far this year. Is in up there with the national leaders in yards per carry. He's averaging over 8 yards per carry. Like that's pretty crazy for a guy that's just now moved to the position. Now he played at some in high school, but this is obviously a different deal. Like this is he's a converted receiver. The coaching staff has loved him all off season. He's done a really fantastic job. So look on the depth chart for this upcoming game against Ole Miss. They have it listed as Dante or Trey or Jamal. Jamal started last game. I would be pretty surprised if he doesn't start again. I just don't know why you wouldn't continue to start him and let him do what he does. Let Trey carry the duties, and having Dante Smith as your third back there are way worse situations. He's very experienced. He can be explosive as well. So I think the running back room has been really good so far, but Haynes King, another great game. We'll transition to the quarterback here. 21 of 29, 4 touchdowns, had a long of 55. The chemistry that he has with his receivers, and especially the fact that a lot of them are new, I think is pretty remarkable. Obviously, he played with Chase Lane in college, and they have a little bit of that connection. But Malik Rutherford, they have that was just their second game. They seem to be on the same page. Eric Singleton has only played 2 collegiate games ever. They seem to be on the same page, especially him and Dominic Blaylock as well. Yeah, the chemistry between the quarterback and receiver right now for Georgia Tech. That was something I was worried about early in the season, and one of the reasons I picked Louisville to win was because Jack Plummer had played in Jeff Brom's system before and knew how to operate it. This is Haynes King's first year in Buster Faulkner's system, as well as being surrounded by a lot of new receivers and new weapons. He has done a magnificent job. Like it has not, it couldn't have gone any better to start. But now, he's going back into familiar territory. He's obviously came from Texas A&M in the SEC, and Georgia Tech is going back into Oxford, or going to Oxford this Saturday to face the Rebels. So Haynes, he just looks in command the whole time. Like there's no indecisiveness. There's no unsure about where he's going with the ball. There's no holding it. He didn't hold it too long this week. He had a very good pocket presence. And again, good improvement from week 1 to week 2. But again, the opponent was Georgia Tech obviously overmatched them by quite a bit. This is, again, going to be a test. Ole Miss's defensive line wasn't very impressive last year. They're a little bit better this year. I think they played pretty well against Tulane from what I watched on Saturday. Of course, they have Jared Ivey, former Yellow Jacket, on the end there. So they got some players, but it'll be their. I don't know if they're markedly better than Louisville up front. I'll say that. Tight ends, Brett Seither caught another touchdown. I at least think it's good that Haynes King trusts him there. I'm not seeing much out of anybody else, but again, there's more to tight end play than just receiving. Brent Key was talking today about how well Dylan Leonard's blocking. Luke Benson has caught some passes as well. Like those guys are, it's better than last year. You would desire a little bit more. Like I know he's just gonna. He'll say he just wants them out there to do their job, be unselfish and everything, and that's fine. It would be nice to have a reliable weapon though. Like everybody would like a reliable tight end. So that's just something to watch going forward. But it's at least good that King and Seither have found rhythm in the end zone. And again, right after Jamal Haynes had that big 67-yard run, Haynes looked right to Seither, got the touchdown, easy. So we'll see what we get more out of this position going forward. Offensive line, big shout out. I mean, true freshman Ethan McKinney making his first start at left tackle and was, again, I don't know how y'all can buy into PFF or not. That's fine. He graded out pretty well, and I trust him more often than not. He had a nearly 85 pass blocking grade. Like, that's really, really good for a true freshman. I don't care who you're playing. Like, you got to look at true freshmen a little bit differently because it's not like he's been playing for 3 or 4 years and just going against the FCS opponent and showing out in that game. Like, that's his first ever start and his second ever college game. So it's just baby steps. Now, obviously, going on the road to Ole Miss is a much different environment, and this is going to be a really big test for him. But we'll see how he can handle it. He played really well. They didn't give up a sack. Last year I remember against Western Carolina, what should be an overmatched FCS opponent, the result was a little bit differently. They hung in the game. The defense was able to get pressure. You could tell the offensive line was really struggling. That wasn't the case on Saturday. Joe Fusaw and Weston Franklin had another solid game. We saw Connor Scaglione go to right guard, and he was first on the depth chart this week as well. Jordan Williams kicking back out to right tackle, where I do think he is best. We didn't see Ja'Kai Leftwich out there. Corey Robinson did get some snaps at left tackle. I think they're still wanting to keep him fresh, but it seems like Ethan McKinney's the left tackle for the foreseeable future right now. I think they got to let him hang in there. There are going to be some ups and downs. You know, you're going to be playing some very stout defenses. Ole Miss is a pretty solid front. You're going to face Miami it's borderline elite defensive line. Clemson and Georgia are very good up front, obviously, as well. So they're going to be tougher tests ahead, but, you know, he gets A+ for the first one. You know, you got to pass your first one to get to the second one. So we'll see how he goes from there. Just offensively as a whole, there's just nothing to complain about outside of the fumble. Like, we'll get to special teams in a little bit. That's separate, but you know, they ran the ball well. They were explosive. And like the main thing I wanted to see, I said on the last podcast, is I want to see them throw the numbers out or throw the ball outside of the numbers. I didn't want it to just be, okay, let's hit a quick screen and get yards after catch. I want to see them hit big plays over the top. They did that, and they almost did it like more than a few times. Like Eric Singleton caught a deep touchdown. And like, guys, I'm telling you, I don't claim to be an X's or O expert. I don't claim to be able to scout players and project them into the future. But most people that watch football know a star when they see one. I'm telling you, he is going to be a star sooner than later. The fact he's getting as much playing time behind a veteran wide receiver core is pretty special. His speed is something else. The way he runs routes, he is a complete package, and he's only going to get better. I think with Chase Lane out this weekend against Ole Miss, he's going to have to step up and play a really big role. He's into the bell so far. Like he made some really tough catches against Louisville, caught a touchdown. He caught a touchdown this week. Let's see if he can make it 3 weeks in a row. But he has easily been one of the most impressive freshmen in the ACC, in my opinion, and I'm excited to see where it goes. But quarterback, good. I thought Zach Pyron, he came in. It's hard to tell when a backup is coming in those kind of situations because you're probably not going to be pushing the ball down the field. It's just going to be, hey, let's get to the end of the game. Let's not turn it over, run this clock out. And he did that. He didn't make any dumb mistakes. He's 3 of 5, 20 yards, and that was it. But running backs, Jamal Haynes, Trey Cooley, very good. Receivers, they're spraying the ball around. I mean, Malik Rutherford, 5 catches. Dominic Blaylock, 4 catches. Eric Singleton and Chase Lane, Christian Leary, 3 catches. Trey Cooley, 2 catches on 3 targets. Like, this is what they've talked about it all offseason and this is what they wanted the offense to be. And look, it was. And look, you look at the advanced numbers. I don't know how many of y'all are into this. I certainly am, but 78th percentile in EPA per play, 81st percentile in success rate. That is elite. And even better, 96th percentile in yards per play. Like, this offense just was absolutely dominant against South Carolina State on Saturday. It's what you want to see. Like, people can complain about the opponent and it doesn't mean anything, but it's better than just putting up 300 yards and having 5 yards per play. Like, at least you didn't do that. Like, elite I'm not saying Georgia Tech's offense is elite right now, but like, good offenses do what they're supposed to do, and they did that. Like, yards per dropback, 89th percentile. They were explosive through the air. Third down success rate, they were again very good on third down and very good in the red zone. And they didn't allow any havoc. Like, it was just a very clean game from Buster Faulkner. And he's going to have to call his best game of the year. So up to this point on Saturday night, because it's going to be first road game of the year for Tech. Like, it's going to be different. But offensively, A+ is all around. They passed the test. So I guess it's time to move on to the other side of the ball where we still have some concerns. But I guess I'll start there with the good news. ACC Defensive Lineman of the Week, Kyle Kennard, had an interception, had a forced fumble, had a fumble recovery, and I thought he was going to score on the pick six or on the interception. I really thought he was going to score there, but again, he played really well. Finished with 5 tackles, again, forced fumble, had the interception on the very first defensive drive of the game. It was just an all around really good game. Obviously, with Sylvain out, Eddie Kelly got to start. Led the team in tackles. He had 9. He did get banged up at the end of the game, but Brent Key said today that he's going to be fine. I expect him and Kevin Harris to be the starters. Again, Kyle Kennard, Noah Collins are going to factor in heavily here. Defensive line, again, the big problem right now is there's no sacks. Nobody has a sack yet, and that's you're facing a Lane Kiffin coached offense this week, and I know that they like to run the ball as well, but they're going to throw the ball around and hit play action too. Like they're going to run, and then try to hit you over the top. Like that's what they do. So to be able to counter that, you have to be able to get quick pressure. And I don't think Ole Miss has an elite offensive line, but it's solid enough. And I think they're just going to have to try to get creative at this point. One of my biggest worry this going into this season was the pass rush, and so far that has been the case. So how they develop that position and how they come up with ways to affect the quarterback and create havoc, that is just going to be something we're going to have to watch all season long. They did get some tackles for loss and did some things better in this game. And I will point out that you were facing a pretty unique offensive team in South Carolina State. And when I say that, like they literally can't throw the football. Like their quarterbacks are just not good at throwing the football. They're not terrible players, but they're running a pretty much option out of shotgun. Like they're running different variants of the option, and it got Georgia Tech sometimes because I still think the tackling is an issue a little bit. But you weren't facing a downfield passing attack, so it was a little hard to gauge this pass rush a little bit. But in the situations where South Carolina State was forced to pass or chose to, didn't pass the test. So we'll see how that gets addressed. But I think the highlight of the day for me on defense outside of Kennard was the linebacker position. And I think just the guys that were rotating in and playing well. Obviously, Trinilius Tatum and Paul Muala got the start. But, I mean, Kyle Eford, 7 tackles. He was second on the team, tied with Kennard. Braylon Oliver came in and had 5 tackles. Andre White got some snaps in as well and played pretty well. So, look, that there's some talented guys at that linebacker position. I think that's a spot you want to have depth on because Tatum and Maala, they played pretty much all the snaps against Louisville. So the tackling again is not where you want it to be at that level right now, and I still think you could use them a little bit more blitzing. But I thought they all played a fairly clean game, and just to see the backups come in, get reps, do what they're supposed to, I thought was pretty good. Secondary was kind of meh to me. The main thing was in a game against this kind of team running this kind of offense, tackling is just going to be paramount, and they kind of just were okay at it. The defense was also not great in the red zone. Like South Carolina State was in the 90th percentile in red zone conversion, so that was a little bit of a low point. But you couldn't judge the coverage or anything like that really for the secondary. I still think it's a strength of the team. Amari Harvey looks like he's going to be getting the start again on Saturday, opposite of Miles Sims. They're going to have their hands full. Ole Miss is talented on the outside, and they could be even better. Zachary Franklin, wide receiver transfer from UTSA, he has not played this year. He could get in on the action this week, and that could cause Georgia Tech a lot of problems. So the corner's going to have to be ready. I still think Jalen King is getting back in the rhythm of things. I think sometimes he did get beat in the Louisville game, and I thought he looked out of step a little bit. But coming back from injury, I think it's still going to take him a little bit. But I'm sure he's a seasoned veteran. I think he's going to be fine. Lamiles played pretty well. Clayton Powell, like I still think it's the strength of the defense and the entire team. But they're going to be tested this Saturday and into the future. So overall, defensively, I would give it a B to B minus. There wasn't any flash plays outside of the Kyle Kennard turnovers. There was tackling issues, and they had a problem on the edges with the option. South Carolina State would run speed option to the edge, and it tripped up Georgia Tech at different moments in the game, and it just kind of reminded me a little bit of how Louisville would try to get to the edge and make people miss. And again, Lane Kiffin will see that, and he's going to try the same thing. I'm almost positive. So, look, we'll see. This defense is a very, very stiff test. It has not ranked well. It has not gone well so far this year. They've still got a little bit of a ways to go, but we'll find out. Special teams, obviously, we got to talk about that. Gavin Stewart had a miss on Saturday. Aiden Burr had to come in, and he did pretty well. He hit a long of a 42. He went 2 for 2. They have to find some consistency at this position. It feels like this has been plaguing Georgia Tech for years now, but like you got to find. You don't expect the kicker to go out there and hit every single attempt. It's just missing short ones, and it looks like it's not even given a chance. Like, 47-yarders are tough. Like there's no doubt about it. But missing to get a crucial one against Louisville hasn't helped his chances. Look, Brent Keys pointed out he's done really well on kickoffs. 9 touchbacks. You're not going to hear an argument from me because that really helps field position, but they're listed as co-starters on the depth chart. It would be very surprising to me if Aiden Bird didn't try out there to kick. I think with the way Gavin has kicked, I just think it would not send a great message to keep trotting him out there, especially after Aiden come in and hit 2 field goals. But again, Gavin is talented. He hit some big kicks last year against Duke, against Pitt, against North Carolina. Like he's done it before, but he's just in a little bit of a rut right now. So we'll see how the kicking situation plays out for the rest of the year. Another great thing about the best thing about special teams I thought this week was David Shanahan didn't have to step on the field to punt. Like that, your offense is playing really well when your punter doesn't have to come out here and do his job. So um, he'll see some work the rest of the season, but it was good. He got the day off on Saturday, so it was nice to see. Just the biggest thing, Georgia Tech is now 1-1. Like this was a game they were supposed to win by a lot. They dominated, won by a lot. Now you're going on the road to face your biggest test of the season. I don't know what to make of Ole Miss big picture wise so far this year. They played probably a worse team in Mercer. I don't know about worse, but Mercer's pretty bad in the FCS, and Ole Miss handled them pretty well. They were in a dogfight with Tulane all day Saturday, and you might say, well, yeah, of course, Tulane was number 24. Well, their best player didn't play. Michael Pratt, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, didn't step on the field Saturday, and Ole Miss still got the business from Tulane. Like that Tulane's a very well coached team. They came to play. Ole Miss had some trouble with some things, so I'll be interested to see how this staff tries to attack those issues. So this is, to me, I think with Pratt out, I think this is the biggest test for Ole Miss too. To be perfectly honest, with Michael Pratt out, I think you lose that explosive element in both the running and the passing game, especially the way Georgia Tech's playing right now. Like they're throwing the ball pretty well. They've hit explosives through the running game, through the rushing game as well. And Lane Kiffin complimented it this week, said they look much better. Could be coaching talk, but I do think you look at the numbers and it is much better. So um, everybody remembers the game last year. I don't want to get too much into that. Like that was last year, different head coach, completely different feel to it. And they're big underdogs, but Brent Key has done pretty well as an underdog so far. Like I think last I checked, they were 19.5-point underdogs. Look, he was a 3-touchdown underdog against Pitt, won outright. 3-touchdown underdog against North Carolina, won that game outright. Covered against Georgia, covered against Duke. So we'll see what happens. And he won outright as an underdog against Virginia Tech, and he covered against Louisville. So he's pretty decent when he is an underdog. Obviously, you don't want to be the underdog, but they're pretty significant underdogs this week. So I think again the biggest issue I'm worried about is just the tackling and the pass rush. If you give a Lane Kiffin coach team, Jackson Dart, and those weapons time to throw the ball and time to make plays, it's going to be game over. Like there's not going to be much to it. That will be the only thing that matters in that game if they can't get it done. So they haven't been able to run the ball so far this year, which has been shocking. But don't think that they're going to give up on it. Like Quinshon Judkins is an absolute stud. He had a great game against Tech last year. When you're a first-team All-SEC player as a true freshman, like you're a special player. And Quinshon Judkins is a special player that's just off to a little bit of a slow start. Maybe you contribute some of that to the offensive line. But I'll say Jackson Dart has really stepped up and been impressive so far. He hit some deep passes. He looks in command of the offense as well. So I think he was kind of disappointing last year, and he didn't even have to do much against Georgia Tech last year because they ran the ball so well. But I'm kind of interested to see how he matches up. The receivers for Ole Miss match up with this Georgia Tech secondary. And look, there's some familiar faces on Ole Miss's defense. There's Amari Walton, Jared Ivey, Kilo Stone, those guys. I haven't been impressed with Ole Miss's secondary, and it could be an advantage for Georgia Tech. The way they're throwing the ball around, the way Haynes King is done, I think it's mainly going to come down to, all right, the offensive line, this is another test. You had some bumps in the road against Louisville. There's some pressure on the edges. Now you're going to switch it up. Ethan McKinney's going to play more. Obviously going to get the start at left tackle. Jordan Williams has moved back outside. I think that's his better position. You got to be able to protect Haynes this Saturday and open up lanes in the running game. I think the jury's still out on how good Ole Miss defense really is because they gave up points to a backup quarterback and let Tulane run a bunch of plays. It's fair to wonder how it would have been different if Pratt was in there. So we'll see if Georgia Tech can do some damage there. And defensively, like that's where I'm worried about. I trust Lane Kiffin to be able to put up points, and they're gonna come right at Georgia Tech running the football. I have a very good hunch that that's what's going to happen, and say, all right, we haven't been able to run it so far yet, but Quinshon Judkins is really good, and y'all can't tackle. So here you go. Let's see what you can do, and if they stop that, then we'll see if you can pass rush. But defensively, it's going to be a big challenge this week, and obviously a big challenge on the road. It's Haynes King's. It's his first road start of the year. Obviously, he does have experience, so it's not a huge issue. But for a lot of these guys, especially some of the freshmen and stuff, this is their first real hostile environment that they played in. So we'll see how they handle it. But that'll do it for today. I just wanted to quickly break down the South Carolina State game, some things I liked. We'll dig a lot more into Ole Miss. I know that was just kind of a brief overview. I'm gonna hit the study books. I'm gonna go take a deeper look at them. I'm probably gonna watch that Tulane game again just to see if anything I missed. But really appreciate it. Anybody that's watching this, be sure to like the video, subscribe on YouTube. Go check out allyellowjackets.com. Coming out with a ton more Ole Miss, Georgia Tech content this week. There's going to be plenty of it. So I obviously greatly appreciate if you read it. If you listen on podcast form, be sure to like, review, do all that stuff. Anybody does. But this is Jackson Caudell, and this is the end of All Yellow Jackets episode 4. Thank you for tuning in.